Hello.
Hey
Yeah,
everybody, we're ready.
my name is James Halm.
Hey Jim.
Doing the presentation on innovative strategies for engaging students. So, like some of these where you're taking, you're not going to be taking, you could take notes, but it's more about engaging. And like the program says, it's going to be more about a discussion where you can take some of this and think about the subject you're teaching and apply it to the subject you're teaching. And so I just have a short, like 2-page outline, and then I'm going to refer to a YouTube playlist, and I'm going to refer to something else. But I'm going to refer to that Star Power, and I'm going to, which is a simulation game, and then I'm going to refer to Kahoot when we get to that. Now, I know, Jim, you do Kahoot, don't you?
I used to.
You used to.
Yeah. The best way to use it is when people are answering the questions with their phones, and there's no phones in my classroom. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I do it as a group. We do it together.
Oh, okay.
But they just start charging me. They say you charge if you're gonna shuffle the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Randomly shuffle the answers. You got to buy the license now.
Okay. Does anybody else use Kahoot?
I don't think we have.
Okay, so one person does. All right.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna follow the outline, and this is basically what I do when I'm teaching my subject. I teach sociology. I've been teaching sociology. If I was to add up everything, all the schools from the time I started till now, it's probably 35 years. When I first started teaching, it would have just said lecture, a few films or videos, and that's about it. Oh, actually, that game, the simulation game I play, I've been using that since I started. So I've been using this for like 35 years.
Wow.
I'm curious, does anybody ever have difficulty engaging their students? Certain classes?
I do. That's a good one. Yeah. That was a safe question.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I mean. I'm still working out, like everybody else that, why is this one class where the first one is so engaging and then the other one is like pulling teeth?
Yeah.
I used to blame myself, but now it's like, no, it's probably the motivation factor, the students you got, the age, and all that. So you got to consider that. And I'm always thinking of new ways.
Sorry.
But anyhow, we all have this where we have to, sometimes you have to lecture more. And so this is the first strategy, I try to break things up with personal experiences and stories. Fortunately, in sociology, you can do that a lot. I put up some examples. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about these topics: parenting, dating, and family size. And I was talking about my parents. My father was Mr. Strict, and if you were 5 or 6 in my family, and there were 12 of us, if you were 5 or 6, my mother said, "I'm going to tell your father," I'd run and hide under the bed because I knew I was going to get spanked. Okay. My mother, on the other hand, she was more what they call authoritative, not strict, but not lenient. She would talk to you more. And I said stories about like with my older brother, my father had to chase him down the street one time because he knew he was going to get it. And at the time, I was like 4 or 5. I still remember it. But then my mother was more the, let's talk it out. Let's see. The punishment was more non-physical. And then, I would ask the students, what were your parents like? or, the dating. I would talk about some of my dating experiences to get them to talk about theirs. Like about 8 years ago, I dated this one woman who was just so obsessively jealous it drove me nuts. If I mentioned another woman, I was in the doghouse. Most of the time I was in the doghouse and didn't even know why. Who was that one woman who said hello to you? Just as an example, then some of them would start talking about, okay, my friend, this girl I'm dating now, she's kind of jealous. I think it gets them talking more if you talk about things like that. Or family size, because at one time there was 14 people in the house. So, I talk about, well, that's why I started taking my showers at night. Because in the morning, I had to wait too long and I'd be late for school. Or how we used to eat in shifts. 3 shifts. The younger kids were the first shift, older kids were the second shift, and my parents were the third shift. And, then some of them, I actually had a student that had 15 siblings. This was a couple years ago. I remember she said, for us it was more like 4 shifts. I guess their house was pretty small, smaller than mine. So, with this now, you're all teaching different subjects. Can you maybe think of an example of what you might use as a personal experience or a story? Like while you're lecturing to make it more interesting. Anybody? Yeah.
I mean, I use personal examples all the time. I've only been teaching now. This is my 4th semester, so I'm still relatively new, and I spent the last 25 years out in the field. And I teach horticulture, so everything we did is outside.
Okay.
And I'll refer back to where I used to work. I spent 15 years there. And almost every single time I do it, I still say we, meaning my old job, not the new one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll talk about the mistakes that I've made when we talk about design. There are still I've been doing design work, landscape design, floral design, that kind of thing for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I still screw up, and you do something, and you think it's going to be great, and you look at it on paper, and you go, that's great. You put it in the ground, and you go, that was a terrible mistake. Because they're worried about their first design and what they're going to put together. Oh, I'm going to tweak. I think I should move this. You just have to be done at some point. You might like it, you might not. You have to just be done, put it together, and then move on to the next mistake. So it's okay to do that. Just those of us who've been doing it forever still make those mistakes. Not the end of the world. It's plants.
Mm-hmm.
We can still fix it.
I would think, like if they have gardens or something, they could like apply, at home.
I mean, there's always conversations like that.
Yeah.
A lot of them at least have had some hands-on with plants. And I always, it might be a little maniacal, but I do it anyway. I'll lead them down the wrong path because there's a lot of anecdotal information out there that is not quite right. So I ask them, like, oh, what does this have? And they give you the answer, hopefully the one that I'm expecting, which is not quite right. Mm-hmm. And then someone will spit that answer out and go, and that's what everybody thinks. That's why we're here. We have to pull that back and really figure out what's going on behind it. Because it's part of the truth, but it's not quite all of it. And then they go, oh, and then they're interested because it's something they think they've known forever, and then all of a sudden it's changed. But they're in those classrooms to learn that stuff. That's why they're there. So it is fascinating to listen to their stories and their examples. I will say, I won't mention names, but there are several students, both last spring and this spring when we teach our cannabis class, that add a lot of practical knowledge into the conversations that I am lacking.
What are their initials?
I think at some point, once you start telling, like stories and personal experiences, they feel like, well, he's opening up himself and other students are, and then, sometimes it becomes a really good discussion.
I think it also creates community within the classroom.
Right.
where they make friends and they want to come because their friends are there also.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that too. I mean, when I put them in groups, a lot, and I change them, a lot of them become friends, and you see them after the semester's over, they're hanging out. Some of them date. I've had that. Who knows? Some of them might be married now. Anybody else that uses stories?
When we get to love and social psych and positive psych and human development, I pull up my Match.com profile.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just help me communicate with these women. And sometimes I'll say, like, my psychology class thinks we're really compatible. And then send off the message. We have a grand old time. It's fun.
What exactly is positive psychology? Is that?
The study of everything that goes right with a person. So love,
Oh, okay.
commitment, hope, wisdom, friendship. Yeah.
It sounds like such a good course compared to like this course in sociology, social problems. It's everything negative.
Yeah. Well, that's what people associate with psychology typically. They think of disorders and therapy. That's only a small part of psychology. That's
I
a
know.
small part.
But I mean, I think it's like the popular culture doing that,
Yeah.
putting, focusing on the negative.
Yeah.
Anybody else care to elaborate about sharing personal experience? Yeah.
But I teach ultrasound, and I came from performing ultrasounds, so I definitely use a real-world experience to highlight, what I'm talking about in my lecture. The bad thing is there's a lot of dryness to ultrasound. There's a lot of anatomy that we have to get through.
Oh, right.
And while I can, share experiences with how you perform the ultrasound and how you should care for your patient care, and how to do the protocol and things like that, how you should warm up the gel. And but when we're talking about the hepatic veins and how they course and how you can tell if there's pathology, that is just strictly lecture, and it becomes really very dry. Yes, and then I do have students that sleep in my class.
Well, I can empathize. People have been asking me, well, what are you doing over the summer? I'm not teaching. I said, I got to get a knee replacement. But I had to go to a class where half of it was like talking about the stuff, and I'm just like totally, I'm just like, I really don't want to know what it looks like or what. Just do it right, and, that kind of thing. I feel like that part should have been optional.
Yeah, I'll say.
All right. Let's look at the idea of open-ended questions. Now, again, I feel like you got to break up your lecture somehow. Try to keep them awake. And one of the things that I do is I ask a lot of questions. I don't realize that I'm doing. When I first started teaching, I used to write them all down. Now I'm so used to doing it, I don't have to. It just flows. It's just automatic. But these are a sample of some of the questions I might ask, like chapter on gender, where we're talking about women in politics. And just the fact that we now have women who have run for office and a woman vice president. I always ask this question, will a woman ever be president? Can a woman provide effective leadership skills? And that one almost always triggers some kind of discussion because everybody's got an opinion on it. Or this next one, I just asked this last week when we were talking about education. Who are examples of excellent, average, and poor teachers that you've had? And I say, you have to talk about elementary school, high school, here at Triton. What makes them excellent, average, or poor? Overall, what do you think are the qualities and methods of effective teachers? That's another good one because they've all had experience with teachers. In the chapter we're talking about what so-and-so says is a good teacher, or this is what so-and-so says we should do to improve schools, but now what do you think? they have some really good discussions over, they'll say, that they can remember their third grade teacher and why their third grade teacher was so effective. Or one class was talking a lot about their teachers here, but it was more positive than negative. Or today, I was asking them, we're on politics now. I let them use their cell phones, and they like that, of course, and their laptops. They go, look up the origins of we're talking about political parties, the donkey, the elephant, and the colors. They like that, and they're like, wow, Andrew Jackson, was he really a jackass? I go, well, that's what the Republicans thought. I'm like, well, now, I don't think the high schools are doing their job so well. They probably never had Andrew Jackson before. At least they know that he was a president. But anyhow, does anybody do that? They use open-ended? What are some of the questions you might ask in your subject matter? Especially to get them going, that maybe there might be a discussion developing from it.
Well, I teach adult ed, GED classes, language arts.
Okay.
So every day we have a different reading. So there are always open-ended questions with every reading, no matter what it is. And
are they like the same questions for each
no,
story, or
it could be any number of different topics. I mean, it could be something from history, it could be a science article.
Oh, okay.
It could be anything, because they have to learn to read and answer questions and find main ideas and so forth. But I always have open-ended questions with everyone. And they like that. They like to be able to talk about it. And then after they talk about it, they suddenly think that the article was so interesting. But that's because, we were talking about it and relating it to.
Yeah, I think, part of this too is like to develop their critical thinking skills. I mean, this is a painless way to do it, I think, is by, doing something like that. Yeah.
I mean, in our, again, talking about plants and all that kind of thing, we inevitably, in almost every class, end up on the topic of breeding and genetics. And then, which leads us directly into GMOs, which are topics. They always are. And all of the interesting thing, the students all kind of have different ideas of what GMOs really are, genetically modified organisms, and then have different opinions on, are they good, are they bad, should we be doing this, should we not be. I mean, everything from who knows what's in them, you can't trust them, to, I have another student that said everything should just be GMO, GMOs are amazing. Okay, those are about as extreme as we can get, but then the conversation opens, which is kind of nice, and then we end up somewhere in the middle. And as they're going back and forth, I will add in insights to what their thoughts are, what their opinions are, because they don't always know all of the background science just yet, because we have just started talking about it. So then I can add in little bits and pieces. All right, well then what do you think about this? Where do you think it's going? Is it worth it? Is it not? Where do we draw a line, or do we draw a line? Is it, we get to the discussion just because we could, doesn't mean we should. Yeah. And we end up a lot in that arena. And then in the turf class, we talk about if turf should even exist as a thing, or if we should just get rid of all turf and have native plants, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, right. I mean, throughout you have to like guide them.
No, turf, like grass, like your home lawn. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, you have to like. I can understand your point. You have to guide them, because sometimes they're not on the right track, and you do it in a way where you don't embarrass them.
Oh, yeah. No, it's adding.
Yeah.
It's adding little bits of information. I always describe it. I show puzzles, and there's pieces missing. And if you've never done this, it's kind of fun. If you find the same manufacturer of puzzles, they use the same die set to stamp every piece of every puzzle. So if you take the wrong pieces from this puzzle and you find it in the exact same spot, it fits in different puzzles. So you can take two completely different puzzles and put them together, and the pieces fit perfectly, but it's not the right picture. And I always describe what we're talking about. It's like, you knew most of it, but you filled in the blanks with what fit, but it might not be what was right. So then we have to pull those pieces out and replace them with the right bits. And it's not necessarily their, fault or anything. It's not the fault of anybody. But we have these incomplete pictures and we try to fill it in with what we think we know or our understanding, and that's not always the clearest picture.
Right.
So it just makes sense that, well, let's pull the pieces out, find the right ones, and we'll fit them back in. You'll have a much cleaner picture of what this is on the other side.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I teach in the nursing assistant program, so one of the things that we teach is postmortem care. So we show a movie on palliative care and hospice care. It's a documentary of people really dying and how the doctors treat them, how they push them into hospice. Family dynamics are in it, it's really good. So I asked them, how did you feel? Okay, if you're sad, why? What made you sad? What part made you mad and why? A lot of them get mad at the doctor. And inevitably, somebody has a grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle who had passed away, so they start telling their own personal stories. And then another one says, oh yeah, I had that happen to me too. And this one had dementia. And so it opens up a big discussion, and it's just about that.
What is it?
Kind of morbid. Nursing assistant. Yeah, like a CNA, a nursing assistant. Yeah. Nursing assistant.
Yeah.
I found I can ask questions and have a vibrant discussion. Easier, like you're saying, classes have a personality of their own, so
Yeah.
some classes just like that. And if they have trouble talking, I've got a lot of luck putting them in groups of 3. If it's 2, it's too much. They don't have the group dynamics. If it's 4, they can get social loafing, and so everyone else will take care of it.
So what's your
3
normal size?
3 seems to be the perfect number.
Yeah, I mean, I'll depending on how many are, sometimes it has to be 2, but yeah, they're 2 to 3 with me too. You're right.
Yeah.
They're too big.
And the really shy people, a lot of them just come alive in a group of 3. But
Yeah.
they can't talk to the whole class, but,
Yeah. Stuff to think about. Anyone else? Open any questions? All right. I do YouTube clips. In fact, this is what I have. Okay, I teach at 3 schools, and I typically teach in sociology, family, social problems, and intro.
and where are those being held? I can't tell.
On YouTube.
You have your own YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they call it a playlist. And I go from the top here, this would be like the first day, and as the semester progresses, intro soc, you cover every, you do culture, socialization, and actually here you do, that's how I start, what is sociology? And then you do the origins, the founding fathers, Marx is one.
So the playlist allows you to determine what's on your.
Yep, I chose all of those.
But my problem is, and this is why I've not gone back to YouTube, to my YouTube channel, is it would show other people's YouTubes. And I couldn't control what it was recommending.
Oh, really? The only thing it does for me is sometimes it removes some of them. That's all it does for me.
That's weird.
Like you can see this.
But you don't get the other panel where it's suggesting other videos you should watch?
Not usually. See, then,
I'll have to look that up.
do you guys remember Super Bowl Shuffle?
Oh, yeah.
Right? When I'm doing culture and
Yeah.
Spanish speakers, a lot of my research was on Latinos in the United States. And here we go, benefits of being bilingual, the media. Here's inequality. What are these rich people doing with the wealth?
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah. Oh, here's one.
I'd like to know.
How about a little something for the rest of us?
Here's one. You remember Archie Bunker?
Of course.
Yeah.
Maybe you heard about this one, Class Divided.
I use it every time.
Yeah. Here's one. Do you have to speak Spanish to be a Latino? Here's some. There's nothing more American than speaking Spanish.
Looks fascinating.
And then I take, stuff that they like Mulan, Lara Croft, Kim Possible for gender roles. Here's something from the Barbie movie. The one that was out, 2 years ago. Here's a student that was here that became a model. So that makes it relevant. A Triton student.
You put a limit on how long your videos. What I'm trying to say is, after a certain point, they stop paying attention.
Okay,
So, do you know what I'm saying?
I
You tend to do
show them
shorter.
one at a time.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, like, would you show a 20-minute video? Or
Oh, I never do.
Never, right. They're all.
No, they're all like, the longest one might be 7 or 8 minutes.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
No, I
You do longer
show,
ones?
oh, sure, but then what I do is I'll go like 3 minutes in or a minute and a half in, and then I stop it, apologize for stopping it, and I go, well, here's a perfect example of this, that, and the other, maybe.
Oh, okay,
draw a
I
thing,
see.
maybe have a discussion, then back to the video.
You're better than me, I rarely apologize for stopping the video.
Yeah, see, that's where you need to.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
kind of
sometimes the
stuff?
TED Talks are helpful.
TED
Oh,
Talks
yeah.
are great.
I have but this, I do, like, they don't know. You remember Leave It to Beaver?
Of course.
Okay, well, I use that to introduce the nuclear family. How way back in the dinosaur era, television, it was in black and white, and they emphasized nuclear families. Here's Dr. Phil
Ah,
giving advice to blended family. There's a clip from,
hamster.
remember Mr. Mom?
No.
Talking about family or sex roles. Here's like new research about dating. Here's that 70s show about parenting. Oh, this is a good one. It looks at like 2 schools, one heavily funded, one with little funding. Today I showed this one. Why don't people vote? And then next week I'll show, just teach about the 3 branches of the government, Schoolhouse Rock, and then this is a more review of 2 of the theories. And like I said, I have it for the other subjects too, family and social problems.
If I'm gonna show them myself, as opposed to them accessing it, a lot of times they'll just embed it in Blackboard and make it not visible
Mine-
to the students, and then I just.
Mine are on Blackboard too,
Start it from there.
Yeah. so they can watch them again. If it's an online class, they watch it on their own. So like, okay, a class divided, okay, these are questions that I would ask, because I always discuss these, the clips. I don't just show them and then let's move on. Like this is basically, what did the teacher do? And was it effective? Would it work with adults? How would you teach children about prejudice and discrimination? Is everybody familiar with the class divided? Like a critical thinking, or the Barbie movie. How does the film Barbie contrast with the Barbie you're familiar with? Does this change how you perceive Barbie as a character? So I showed 2 little segments. A lot of them saw the movie already. Actually, that was my, I have a peer mentor here, like a teaching assistant. That was her idea to do Barbie, because she just saw the movie. So I get some insights from peer mentors. In fact, the Kahoot, my first peer mentor said, we should do that. And I said, how does it work? And I've been doing it ever since.
Do you all use peer mentors? Oh, it's great.
Do you have one?
All my classes, all my intros, anybody who gets an A in the class, you can recommend them to be a peer mentor.
Right.
They get a paid position.
It's
and
good.
They act as a resource to your students. And basically, it's just, they have to have office hours.
Yeah.
And I have them maybe show up at every 2nd or 3rd class, and a lot in the beginning, so students know they're there and know they're a resource.
Yeah.
But they're not a subject matter expert, they're just
No.
there to help them get places. So how do I get this? And they'll refer them to the ETRC or whatever, but there's a person who's an actual peer of theirs as a resource. I think it's a great
Yeah, I mean,
program. So I think
like
shifting-
she helps them with Blackboard. They don't even have to go over there because she was
Yeah.
in my class. She knows how it works. So yeah, they go to her and I give extra credit for that. Going, using a resource. Yeah. Does anybody use something like YouTube clips or other visuals? Who uses YouTube?
I do.
Oh, all the time.
Okay. Anybody use anything different?
Ted,
Ted?
yeah.
Okay.
Ted is
I
good.
use, the,
My class is writing for advanced ESL students, so that's the time. And it's a class of Latinos.
Uh-huh.
So I look for famous Latinos. Like we just did a big unit on Frida Kahlo. And they all know her, but I was surprised they didn't really know that much about her. So that was interesting.
Good. I mean, you notice like mine, there's a lot on Latinos because, well, the student population here, and over at Morton is even larger. And, I wrote my dissertation on Latino politics, so it's a win-win-win.
It's interesting to me, the students in my class, I know nobody here, we don't ask, what's your immigration status?
Right.
We don't do that. But one thing I think I've noticed is that they have very little, they don't like illegal immigration. They don't have sympathy for the difficulties faced by illegal immigrants.
Really?
That's the way it comes across to me in many cases. In fact, I had one wrote about Chicago as a sanctuary city. She didn't like that. She didn't think it was fair. And I was surprised to see something like that.
Yeah.
But I understand, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. I went through the whole process. So what's the drill here?
Yeah, it's always a learning process. I mean, with students, it's like, yeah, you learn something. Oh, really? So besides the students learning, we're learning.
Well, it's interesting for me.
Yeah.
And if I let them, they would just jabber away in Spanish the whole class.
Okay.
We do everything together.
Well, that's like what I used to do. I studied for a semester in Madrid when I was in college.
Yeah.
We're supposed to speak Spanish, but like among our friends, we were speaking English, just like they're speaking Spanish.
I've been working on Spanish for years, so I do understand how difficult it is to learn a second language.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that helps me a lot in this class.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the younger you are, the easier it is to learn it.
These are, in some cases, grandmothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not young people.
Young grandmothers?
So I have, not too young. I have
Yeah,
the
like
age-
38.
I have one 20-year-old, and the oldest is well into her 60s.
Okay.
I find that 60 Minutes has this history of being really jealous of their intellectual property. But I've discovered 60 Minutes Rewind, and they have all kinds of old episodes on there, easily available through YouTube without any paywall or anything. So 60 Minutes Rewind, it's called, some of my favorite. They have amazing little segments on sleep and phone addiction and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah, over the years, that show's probably covered just about every topic.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember when it wasn't a regular, like it used to come on like in the afternoon on a Sunday instead of like at night.
Yeah, but that's back when there was Leave the Beaver.
Right.
I think Beav was on the 60 Minutes.
Well, you know what? I don't remember that being first run. I just remember it in rerun.
Oh,
And it didn't start on Channel 9, it started on Channel 2 in rerun. I don't know what network it was on. Yeah, I think the visuals is another thing that draws them in, gets them talking, and then, you can combine, like I do, get the visual, ask some questions about it, get the discussion. I mean, typically when I teach, I've never in the past I did. My typical class, there's usually lecture mixed with YouTube and group work. Yeah.
I think the ones coming up next, I think memes are going to be really reach them easier, because they like the irony and sort of the juxtaposition of images and sort of quotes or things like that.
Yeah.
and then Giphy type ones that have a little animation. It's, it'll be curious to see. Sometimes, I mean, I have no, like, all these references from Generation X, I have no idea. Like, maybe someone knows Clone Wars from Star Wars, you know, so if I'm talking about like a technology advancement with like AI or like robotic or like artificial wombs and things like that, when people are looking at these sort of morphing of tech and human life in anthropology, or kind of thinking about some of these things, they sort of like try to, like, did you guys see Terminator? Which one? Like, you know, or Star Wars, or some of these other things.
Wouldn't Terminator be too old? I don't know.
Well, there's a new one.
There's a new one,
so
okay.
There's always another one.
Oh yeah, just like Star Wars. How many Star Wars?
It's getting so rough.
The first one was what, 1977? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but they can still talk about the Matrix, you know, so when you're actually saying that, like, the technology is almost here to have a little surrogate ward where all the babies are being incubated and you don't even have to carry them, you know, so then you're having these issues of like division of labor and male and female.
Right.
Like, you don't need, like, you know, do you need to have maternity time off if your baby's, you know, you're just programming an iPhone, you know, for music to be played while the baby's incubating, or your voice, so they hear your voice, but you're not there, you're at work, you know, it's curious, right? So we're talking about some of these ethical things with sort of evolution, and then where we're going next comes up a little bit in our class.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it so much better, like when you're explaining something, that there's some visual that goes along with it. I mean, before 2017, I was showing like DVDs and stuff like that, and you know, I was noticing, like I think you said, they were too long. You know, I needed something shorter, and I was observed at another school. We've all been observed, and you know, a lot of the time it's just like, I don't agree with what they're saying, but now this person had a point. You know, at the time I didn't have many visuals, and so she suggested like YouTube. So the summer of 17, I investigated, and I worked with the Blackboard person at the time, Erin Stapleton. She helped me put together the playlist. And then I did it for intro first, and then gradually I did it for some other classes. It was nice that like they're all there. It's easy for the students to look at them too. But you know, any other visual that you got, you find something. Every now and then I'll find something that's not on YouTube, and I'll show that. Like I used to show a segment of, do you remember the show Head of the Class?
I heard of it.
Okay, you know, Howard Hessman was this excellent teacher. So, you know, go back and remember when I was talking about excellent you know what I mean? Okay, how is this guy? Is he excellent, whatever?
Like, welcome back, Cotter.
Oh, yeah, right. That was interesting. Okay, you went from the remedial to the honors. Yeah, Joe.
Oh, I like having them make visuals too, so give them those big post-it note things and a whole bunch of colored things. And psychology, religion, we just did one where I just left it wide open and said, draw a meaning map. So draw a map of your life and what gives you meaning. And that's all I said, and then they just went off everywhere on all different tangents and stuff. It's fun.
How many students are in that in the religion?
Psychology religion is hard to run because it's hidden under that clandestine designation of PSY 296. It's a special topic, and it just says special topics. No one knows it's psychology.
Because I would think, like, are there semesters where it gets canceled because you don't have enough?
All the time, half the time.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because
But in the fall, I finally got it. Now it's PSY 203, so I have an actual designation.
okay, so that's better.
I have for the AI class also 204. So that's gonna be great.
Do you discuss, like in sociology, I would ask them, you know, like, do they belong to a denomination, or are they it's more a personal thing?
Maybe
They don't
that
go to
might
church?
come up. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's all about their psychology. It's definitely not a religion class. So what's the psychology we see in a person, how does that reflect itself?
Okay.
How do you know a healthy religion when you see one?
Oh, okay,
How do you
that
tell
way.
a cult from a religion, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next point, like we were discussing earlier, student discussion groups. Yeah, and they always have some prompt like this. So there's a chapter on race and ethnicity. So they talk about their own, what makes you ethnic? What makes you American? Are you more ethnic, more American? Explain. Obviously, it's a generational thing.
I like that.
Oh yeah, some of them are just like, well, when I'm at this campus, I'm all American, but when I go home, I'm Mexican. We don't eat that. I mean, my mother cooks authentic Mexican food. Like, can you bring some to class next? I did have a student. I mean, sometimes it happens. Oh yeah, my mom will make some. We'll bring them. I said, bring them to class. Yeah, or getting back to the dating. It kind of combines family and gender. What do you think the role should be? I mean, who should ask who up? Who should pay? Who should propose? What's your opinion? If they want to do same sex, they can do same sex too. Yeah, I brought these two up because, yeah, I get a lot of discussion going from that. So what they do is they go in their group, they discuss it, then each group reports on it. And then I moderate. And a lot of times they're like, yeah, I agree. What he's saying is true. I think women should propose now. Why not? There's women CEOs and there's been a woman vice president. And then there's other students that will say, no, I mean, that's traditional. Just keep it the same. What I find interesting, what I've learned is most of them think the man should still propose. But when it comes to the other stuff, they think it could be either or.
Yeah. They say that they're just as likely to pay for dinner, man or woman, until I continue to question them, and then it becomes clear that that's not the case. And then I love poking the bear though, so I'll say like, oh yeah, I gotta pay for her dinner because she's only a woman. Oh, then we watch that. Now, what happens with that? Or I'll go, hey, Mexican, Puerto Rican, same thing, right? I love doing stuff like that.
Oh, of course.
It becomes, they get torches and sickles and they look out there and it's like Frankenstein trying to deal with the crowd. It's great. That would come up.
What I find interesting, some of them, it's like, some of them are like, my parents, they're just so traditional. Like if they're coming from like Mexico or something, they're like, no, they think I should pay all the time and blah, blah, blah. And I tell them, no, she works like me. She makes more money than I do. So, I mean, why shouldn't she pay some of the time? And that kind of goes back to being ethnic versus being American. That's the American view. Okay, their parents have ethnic view. So you can kind of like connect previous chapters as well with these discussions.
Do you use some kind of a text book?
Yeah, we talk-
Yeah, I have a textbook.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the questions I developed myself. So when I first started doing it, I looked at different books and looked at some of the questions that I thought I liked. Others I developed myself. Some of them I developed just from discussions. I didn't really have official questions, but we have discussions, and then, these would be two good questions I could ask in the future. Yeah.
I can see how some of these topics could go down, the very controversial road.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you manage heated arguments, or just let it go Hunger Games and sit there?
No, I step in and I'll say, okay.
Like what, how do you manage?
I say, we got to be respectful of the other person's opinion. Now, you may not agree. Usually it doesn't get that way, but
Yes.
every once in a blue moon, then usually, then they'll cooperate.
Yeah.
Right, because some of this, actually the only static I've ever gotten recently was from an administrator over at Morton. Somebody that like really doesn't know what they're doing. She said, I think you should stop asking some of these questions. Too personal, like who should ask who out? And I said, well, I'm just going by the curriculum. I said, has the student actually complained? No. Then, you know, I forget how I handled it. I'm inside, I'm like, what's your beef then?
You're still working there, so.
I'm still working there, right?
How did that come to the attention of the administrator?
I was observed.
Oh,
That's how.
They were wearing their legal hats when they were seeing the room.
Right.
Something like that.
With some of this stuff though, if you can't discuss it in a setting like this, where can you discuss it? I mean,
Exactly.
This is the place where you could bring this stuff out. It's a.
Well, actually, that was my, that's how I responded to her. I said, this is college, this is adults. This college is supposed to be free and open discussions. Often about topics that people don't like to talk about. Like last week, I was totally surprised at Morton. I teach a course on family. I have this small class that won't talk. It was very difficult. But I thought, oh, abortion, nobody's going to talk about. I got all this discussion going. I don't know. You just never know.
That's actually one that I can talk about in my class.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk a lot about when fetal heart rate is seen and like the ethics of ultrasound and OB these days.
Uh-huh.
But some of the, like you guys, I want to come to some of your classes. They sound really fascinating.
please do.
But it's hard for me to incorporate some of that in this dryness of like we have to cover anatomy. Like there's nothing really controversial about anatomy, you know?
Plus, when you're in the medical thing, they have to learn this stuff or somebody might die.
Yeah.
Right.
Psychology, it's so luxurious. They can forget Freud and Skinner all they want. I just want to learn critical thinking and the joy of learning. If they get that, then they're golden.
Yeah, well, I think,
It's not
I mean,
lost.
psychology is like sociology. I mean, you can make it so relevant.
Yeah.
So something like, I just saw someone had I'm not gonna admit I was doom scrolling, but anyway, they showed a class of students doing ultrasound on each other. And the student rolled to the next image, she goes, and the girl getting ultrasound said, what's that? And it was a baby's head. So she was like, what? And then the girl turned it and all the classmates are first. The meeting was, they're all like, oh, because she didn't know she was pregnant, and there it goes. It was on the ultrasound that she found out in her class. She was in ultrasound tech class, right?
Yes. We find out a lot about each other in ultrasound. Like, you know,
Okay.
people find out that they have
Do you want me to turn it off now?
cysts on their thyroid or
I mean, I could
kidneys
just-
or like,
Wow.
yeah, we really
I mean, I
find
could-
out a lot about each other.
I mean, you look at it.
It's gonna do more in Kahoot. That's all.
Right.
You can see it on the outside.
No, that's my
Smallers-
vibe.
Smallers are finding salt like they can't involve people anymore because their veins and arteries are full of
Plastic.
spike protein also,
Yeah.
long threads of it. So, it would be curious, you know, some things are gonna bring up issues
Okay.
as people's bodies are starting to manifest different things.
Yeah.
You know, like inflammation or seeing different things happening from potential, now it's from people shedding either virus or spike protein from just having that.
Okay, I'm reminded I wish we could go on,
Yeah.
but, I just wanted to say a couple last things. I do Kahoot, and, you know about that already, but I do a simulation game where we build a 3-class society. I've been doing it for 35 years, and it works. And the kids in the upper class act like the upper class. They screw over all the lower class people, just like we've been learning in class. I brought it if you wanted to look at it.
Yeah.
I'll pass it around, but the last other things was like, you know, you could do this, you could do these things in writing assignments. And we've already heard your strategies, reactions. Excellent group. I was wondering if anybody was going to talk.
I think it was nice.
Not
to be
these
able to
people,
talk
these
to
aren't talkers.
I'm glad.
Because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, stop.
In the class, sometimes you have to be a little bit careful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will say, I don't know what your class makeups are like, but I am lucky that the average age